Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Black Youth Town Hall. My name is Cameron Adams, and I'm going to be one of the co-facilitators today, along with Dr. Wizdom Powell. So let's get into it. All right. So like I said, this is the Black Youth Town Hall, and here are our facilitators, including myself. Dr. Powell.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having us here today. We're excited to have this critical conversation.
Yes. I would like to introduce myself as a young person who will be representing Youth Mentoring Action Network at this town hall event. A little bit about Youth Mentoring Action Network. It is an organization that uses healthy mentoring relationships to create equity and justice within the Inland Empire. Some ways we do that is by promoting mental health, resilience, and wellness for young people in the Inland Empire. I'd just like to thank Mentor, the National Mentoring Partnership, for co-hosting this event with us. Your partnership is very much appreciated. I'd also like to thank the other partners, Cities United, the Diana Award, America's Promise, and the UConn Health Institute for also being involved in this event. I'd also like to acknowledge the EMON staff, Isabella Chavez, the Director of Programs, and Kader Maldonado, the Director of Training and Outreach, for both continuously working hard on our behalf on a daily basis. I'd also like to give a huge shout out to the founders of Youth Mentoring Action Network, the doctors Tori and Gail Wieston-Certain, for creating an organization that gives youth, such as myself, a platform to lead. I'd also like to say that all of the young people on this call have been active in collaborating on the questions and details of this event, and that we will all be monetarily compensated for the expertise we're going to be sharing with you all today. And I'd like to remind everyone that if you're going to be posting about this event, please use the hashtag BlackYouthVoice when you do post about it, and also to stick around till after the webinar to see some youth artwork being shown. So thank you so much. I'd like to hand it off to the panelists so that they may introduce themselves. First up, we have Meg Zinat Wamithi.
Hi everyone, my name is Meg. I'm from London, from the UK, and I'm an award-winning mental health campaigner and consultant. I'm really passionate about young people's voices being represented in the mental health space. And this topic means a lot to me because I feel like a lot of Black young people are struggling with their mental health, and there's not a system that allows us to kind of access the support we need. So my kind of dream in life is to make sure that the support finds young people themselves, and that every young person can live a mentally healthy life wherever and whenever they need it.
Thank you, Meg. Next up, we have Anaya Wingate.
Hello, everyone. My name is Anaya Wingate, and I am from Houston, Texas. I recently just graduated high school, and I will be attending Sam Houston State University to double major in education and dance. I dance professionally with a dance company here in Houston called Urban Souls Dance Company. And my mentor has been Walter Hull, who is the co-founder of that dance company. And together and with that company, I've experienced learning how to dance as a Black dancer unapologetically in white spaces. Alongside my mentor, we have been investigating environmental justice issues alongside the Gulf Coast region, and I've met plenty of scientists and speakers, activists, other youth advocates who are involved in this work. And honestly, I'm just very passionate about young people. I'm very passionate about us being exposed with our voices, and also using art and dance to speak about things that we are uncomfortable talking about in any other way or form. So yeah, that's much about me.
Thank you, Anaya. Next up, we have James Hill.
Oh, hello. Oh, hi. My name is James Hill. I am representing Big Brothers and Big Sisters. And as for right now, I have a company. Well, I am the CEO of Right Away. And basically, my company is based off of like helping other people with anxiety and other stuff like that. And another thing is, I do have a big brother, big sister named Steve. We've been together about 5-6 years, and I've been helping around with the community about Black Lives Matter and helping other people with food and other things like that. And I do go to Hopkins High School, and yeah, as for right now, my summer has been going great.
Thank you, James. Next up, we have Jalen Level.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jalen Level. I'm from Louisville, Kentucky. I'm a rising senior at Tennessee State University, where I major in mass communication, concentration, broadcast journalism. Really a little bit about me. I go to HBCU. I was the White House Initiative competitiveness scholar for my HBCU, really working with this presidential administration to advocate funding for HBCUs. While at home, I worked with Youth Violence Prevention Research Center, really just looking at root causes of violence prevention in our community. And I'm also a fellow for, most recently, Cities United, and on the ground here in Louisville, Kentucky, advocating and protesting, demanding justice for Breonna Taylor.
Thank you, Jalen. Next up, we have Eric Hamilton.
Hello, my name is Eric Hamilton. I'm a native of the St. Louis region, and I am a student at St. Louis University, a rising sophomore there, and I'm studying secondary social science education. My work is mainly engaging in diversity, equity, and inclusion work, as well as anti-racist, anti-biased educational practices throughout the American educational system, whether that be K through 12 and higher ed. My goal is to help lead the abolition efforts in our schooling, and hopefully that we have an equitable, equal system for all one day.
Thank you, Eric. Next up, we have Gabrielle Bello.
Hi everyone, my name is Gabrielle Bello and I'm from Chicago, Illinois. I'm a current rising junior at the George Washington University in DC, where I'm studying human services and social justice with a minor in law and society. And basically what I'm passionate about is inspiring and helping my generation ignite the global fight to deconstruct institutional discrimination. And I'm very passionate about tackling social justice from many intersectional viewpoints, and hopefully we can create a new system altogether.
Thank you, Gabrielle. Next up, we have Panelist X, or the Anonymous Youth.
Hi, due to safety, I'm going to remain anonymous, but I do represent Youth Advocate for Mentoring, which is a program that takes 12 young leaders to learn in terms of advocacy, policy making, grassroots organization skills, and just in order for all of our 12 youth to create positive change in our communities. In our nation, we travel to DC and host virtual trainings. And basically, we're just trying to create policy memos to build professional development skills. And I'm located in Richmond, Virginia.
Thank you, Panelist X. So we're gonna hop into our first question. And this is going to be, what are you seeing going on in our nation in regards to police brutality, and when were you first made aware of it? Do you think the media is accurately representing the police?
I can go first. So I know that I was first made aware of police brutality about 6 years ago, and that was really when Trayvon Martin was murdered. And I think basically that a lot of the media attention that I got made me aware that, okay, something isn't right here, and like police aren't someone I can always lean on. I knew police weren't necessarily always the best person to go to in situations where I felt uncomfortable, because I have seen police, misbehave, but never to the extent where I was seeing police actively like murdering people based off the color of their skin. And I think that was where I kind of started to have conversations with my family about racism in America. And I don't necessarily think the media accurately represents the police. I think when we often look at the news, they're misrepresenting Black and brown voices and Black and brown people, and are often showing them as violent. But then the police are kind of like the saviors, and they're the ones that are like doing justice and making things happen. And so they're the ones that we need to go to. And so Black and brown people are vilified, whereas police are then the saviors to protect the community from that specific set of group. And so I think really the media is just reinforcing the injustices that we see today.
I would like to piggyback off of basically what you said about the media. It's definitely not an accurate representation, especially in certain cities and states where, the police are kneeling with the protesters or taking videos of them, high-fiving people of color. And then within the realm of 30 minutes, these are the same officers that are tear gassing and arresting people unnecessarily and over aggressively. So I don't think that there is an accurate representation, especially when the media only shows the looting and the rioting rather than, what's the cause and where is this anger even coming from?
I'd have to agree with that 100%. And, I really relate to the experience of, knowing about police brutality, but it becoming much more apparent after the Trayvon Martin murder. I think it became most real for me being a St. Louis native in the Mike Brown case. Understanding the context of our situation with the Ferguson unrest, it became so real to me at a personal level, even though I do not live in Ferguson. Ferguson's only 10 minutes away from where I live. I'm like, wow. I think that's when I started to feel it emotionally. I think that's when I started to really investigate at a deep level, coming into adolescence and all of that. Like, wow, people really do want to hurt me, because of just how I look. And when I think about the media representation, I think we often focus on news media, which is very true, but we also need to look at our entertainment in terms of when you look at shows like Cops and First 48, even Law and Order SVU. A lot of those shows really set up the narrative that majority of the time the law enforcement officers are white, largely white, very rarely are female identifying. And then you see the perpetrator of the alleged crime is typically always a Black or brown person. And that is subconsciously, supported the narrative that Black and brown people are criminals.
Well, I would like to say that I see a lot of participants are commenting that Trayvon Martin wasn't a victim of police brutality, but I think we're all trying to say is that is the standpoint of when we seen that our skin color was seen as almost a threat. I know that when I was dancing with Urban Soul's dance company, there was a youth program within the company, and my mentor, we were actually doing dance about things that are happening in the broader community. And when I did hear about Trayvon Martin and then the Sandra Bland case, we started dancing about things that involve Black people being harmed by police brutality or just being affected by systematic racism and oppression in general. That's when I started to realize that, hey, like, there's really something wrong and there's really something going on here. I feel like the media portrays the police enforcement as some sort of savior when in reality, we are seeing them really they have sort of this gang behavior. They really portray Black and brown individuals who are very passionate about their voices as savages or thugs. We see this in the news and the media all the time, and it is extremely excessive at this point. And when we ask, do we think the police enforcement is represented correctly by the media? Do we think Black and brown people are represented correctly by the media? Obviously, we are not. I feel like there is a lack of truth in the media when it comes to police enforcement. They are not very honest about the fact that the police enforcement was never really meant to support and protect us in general. I feel like the police enforcement was enforced not to protect us, but to, you know, basically just be a part of this system that is obviously racist. And, you know, this has been going on for over 400 years. It's nothing new.
Add to that, because not growing up in the States, growing up in the UK, a lot of Black British young people, including myself, much of what we've learned about our race and our history has been what we've seen in the US. So for us, it wasn't a matter of sort of when were you first made aware. For us, we grew up, like it was something that you learned before you went out your house. Like I remember being roughly around 4 years old, just before I started primary school in the UK. And I had a very, very deep conversation with my family, and my parents sat our siblings down as well, and said very much, you do realize that because of the color of your skin, you are going to have to work 10 times harder than anyone else around you. And growing up in a village in a very, very predominantly white area, this was the truth. So we were very much made aware that it wasn't just society that was going to treat you differently. It was actually police. My dad made it very, very clear to my brother that as a man, as a Black man, when you go out there, they're only going to see one thing. So we were made aware of kind of police. I wouldn't even say it's police brutality, but police discrimination, because it starts with certain microaggressions that we don't actually attend to and we don't talk enough about. Microaggressions that you can be a Black male or Black woman wearing a hood and be deemed as a villain or deemed as a criminal, and that's does some really crazy things to your psyche, because you're always thinking about how you should portray yourself, and how certain things like just wearing a hood in the rain can completely transform how the police look at you. So it's not a matter of when you were first made aware, it's more like, why were we made aware of it in the first place? Like, why do we have to be taught about these things before we leave our house, that you're already going to be self-aware of these things, like hyper self-aware, that wherever you go, you know, as a Black man or woman, you're going to be treated differently. So I just wanted to just bring that in with the idea that it's not just about first being made aware. We're taught at home. We're taught at home for our own safety, that when we go outside, there are certain things that as a Black man or woman you can or cannot do in front of a police officer to protect your own life. It's not just a matter of, oh, this is the right thing to do. It was to protect your own life. So I just kind of wanted to share that from an outsider's perspective who doesn't live in the US, who knows firsthand that this is something we were taught before we leave our house as young people.
Yes. Oh, go ahead. Sorry,
I just wanted to quickly add to Anaya's point about Trayvon Martin not being a victim of police brutality. I think also in that case, it's important to see how heavily the police protected George Zimmerman in that case, and like went to bat for him and like put him under protective custody. And I feel like even that is like a form of violence against Black people, that when someone is murdered, like you want to protect that person rather than finding justice. So I just wanted to add that point.
So I think this is a good segue for us. I've been listening a lot to these really powerful youth leaders talk about some of the emotional consequences of having, to bear witness to these events. And one of the questions we have been pondering, as elders is, how have you, been processing these events, especially given what was just shared about the fact that the media plays such an important role in making sure that, one, we become aware, but that these images continue to be shown over and over again. And we've been curious about the psychological and emotional impacts on you. Can you talk to us as youth leaders about how you have been processing?
I'd like to just jump on this question. This is gonna be challenging for me, but this is gonna be my time to just, reflect and just get it off my chest. As someone who has been very active personally in the streets, who has been affected by the tear gas, who has been affected personally because of police brutality, it is a very challenging spot to be in psychologically and mentally. I know the first night that I got home after being, just manhandled by someone who just has a badge and a gun. I couldn't sleep. The entire experience is just very harmful, especially to a Black youth. It's like, who do you trust? If I were to be, God forbid, say someone robs my home, do I have the trust in me now to call the police? Do I believe in that their services are going to help me, or do I fear that maybe these officers come to my home and they may suspect me as being the culprit? So all of these protests and the murder of George Floyd, it's mentally draining, because it happens so far away, but it's like, that could have easily have been me. That could have easily have been my father, my partner, my mother, my friends. And you put yourself in this scary box where you take the chance of even walking out of your house, because it's like, I know I personally live around a very large college in my state, so I deal with their police and I deal with my local police. So that's double police that I'm feeling this fear and that this hatred to. And in just terms, honestly, I don't know if there are ways to cope with this, especially in and day out. There's a new person who's been either killed by the police, killed because of these protests, killed just because of the skin of their the color of their skin. And I don't know if there is a way to cope. It's a scary world right now, and it's I don't know, it's malarkey to even try and say today's going to be a good day, I'm not going to be afraid of these officers when you have power over me. So and this is in a general sense now, it becomes a generational thing as well. You start to fear. I'm 19. I shouldn't have to be worried about whether or not my little Black children are going to have this same fear towards the police, this same hatred towards the police. So it's challenging to even look on the news, to check social media, because it's like, what's new today? What trauma? What am I gonna have to embrace myself for now? Who am I supposed to turn to? There's no fear. There's fear towards our government, our legislative, our judicial, our executive, and it's like, how do you continue to just get up day in and day out and continue to fight? And so I've been processing. There was a week straight that I went out to protest and be a part of this movement. And for a second, I had to tell myself, okay, it's time to step back. You've done more than enough. It's time to get some sleep, to finally stop eating once every other day or every couple of days. It's time to just take a step back. And I know it's challenging. You want to be a part of this. You want to be heard. You want to make sure that people who don't use their voices, they have somebody to turn to. But who do you turn to for yourself? And that's a question that I had to ask myself, and just remove myself from everything.
That's a really powerful statement. And I'm wondering if, as the other youth chime in here, tell us some more about who you are turning to. Who's supporting you in this, as you tell us about how you're processing?
Oh, I'm sorry for interrupting, but before I talk about who I turn to personally, I would like to piggyback off of not being able to cope with this. Dealing with processing police brutality and systematic racism in general, we have no other choice but to process this. I feel like in this time, we are growing up feeling like we have to be prepared almost to be put in a situation where either we are a victim of police brutality, or my father is a victim, or my partner. Just like you said, literally it could happen to anyone. So we don't really have a choice whether or not we get to process, or whether or not we get to take 6 months to process. Really, we really have a short time to really actually understand what is going on. And I feel like we can see that in the even like younger individuals than we are. Like my younger sister, just the other day, like TikTok is a really big social media platform right now, and she's really big on that, and she's only 8 years old. And just the other day, she made a statement, and she was mocking Donald Trump, and she said, "I could care less about Black people and their lives." And as soon as she said that, I was like, "What?" But this is reality, because we're growing up in a time where either we have to catch on quick, or who knows what can happen. And you ask me, can I cope with this? I can't cope. I can't sit here and think about what I can do to make this easier. I can do nothing but demand change. That is my way of cope. I really can't cope with being okay with this. I'm not okay. And I feel like this is a fight that our ancestors have been, going on. Like, this is, like you said, this is a generational thing. It's a generational battle. And I don't think we are responsible for the psychological battles that have been input on our people for over years. I mean, the mental illnesses and the anger, the pain is so evident in our people. And we can see that in the protests and stuff like that. And I feel like right now who I can mostly go to is immediate family, my parents. And it's so weird to say this, but it's like you feel like you have to really take advantage of every moment, because you don't know when that can be taken away from you. I can spend time with my dad, and before I leave my dad, I'm like, be safe, please be safe, super safe, super safe, because who knows what can happen. And right now, the people who we can go to are those around us in our community, our village, our circle, our support system, and other Black individuals who are going through the same thing. I feel like right now we need each other more than ever. We need each other more than ever. It's really not the time to be focusing on anything else, because I feel like we're all over it. We've had enough of this, and we're here for each other. And I feel like you can see that in the protests, people who are on the front lines, Black and brown individuals, Muslims. You have literally everyone coming together, because like I said, we're over it. This is getting old, and I know I'm tired, and it's ridiculous. I'm 18 years old and tired of oppression. I'm tired of systematic racism. Like, what even is that? Like, it's sad. It really is sad. And like I said, I'm over it. And my way of coping is demanding change and being on the front lines and protesting and using my voice, period. I have no other choice but to do so.
I'll jump in and kind of just. Okay. Yeah, I'll jump in. Okay. I'll jump in and kind of just pick up where Anaya left off, really just talking about our ancestors and the power that they had. We're talking about 400 years of systemic oppression and racism, right? So, coming from Africa, the power that it took, we are the offspring of people who were on a ship. And then even going to the 60s and the 50s, looking at Martin Luther King and his troops, everyone that followed him, they went out every day to fight for this injustice, to march. After the first day of marching, I was telling my friend, like, man, I'm tired. But then he said, you're tired? They marched from Selma to Alabama. We're only marching 5 blocks. So it's like, do you understand the power that you have? Do you understand who you are, what you come from? So I think that's really what gives me the fuel every day to go out and just fight. I mean, I see George Floyd's name on here, but it's important that we talk about the intersectionality. Breonna Taylor was also murdered by police terrorism. Her murderers are still out here in Louisville, Kentucky. That's problematic. Rayshard Brooks was murdered and they were arrested immediately. So I think it's just a matter of us understanding this isn't something we're ever going to be able to cope with, but we just have to understand the power that we have.
Piggybacking off of that, that's amazing, and I've been thinking about that recently, Jalen, in terms of, our ancestors, those who bled and were beaten for us just to get the little rights that we do have now, right? And thinking that, you know, we are living in the system that we really aren't allowed to cope. I was reading and it came to me about internalized capitalism in terms of like our value in our country is really determined by our productivity and not our humanity. And I have to constantly tell myself, you know, it's okay to not necessarily respond to this email in 2 minutes. You know, sometimes it's okay to take that breath, to get that water, to decompress, to detach from social media. Because I always get this guilt, and I'm pretty sure a lot of us get that guilt that, oh, we're not doing enough, we're not doing this, we're not doing enough to be valued in society. And then I realized that no matter how much we do, no matter how many degrees we have, no matter how many achievements we have, regardless of that, respectability politics don't mean anything. And that we should be valued as humans no matter where we are in this capitalist society, you know, and we shouldn't have to attach our value to things that have been created, that are social constructs. In terms of coping and managing that, I think of a quote from Audre Lorde where she said, caring for myself is not self-indulgence, it is self-preservation. And that in itself is an act of political warfare. And I think about that. Me taking care of myself is an act of political warfare because in the system, we are made to fall. We are made to crush. If you look at the life expectancy of Black individuals, we don't live as long as our white counterparts. Hypertension, diabetes, and that's not because of our race, that's due to racism. You have all these factors of systemic racism falling on top of us. We are literally dying from racism. Racism is killing us, whether we're at the end of a bullet or at the end of not being able to receive food in our neighborhoods because of food deserts, not having the access to work from home. As you see with the COVID-19 pandemic, majority of us did not have jobs where we were allowed to work from home. We are being exposed to being killed by racism in each and every way. That weighs down on you. I bet everyone's blood pressure across the board has gone up. I know mine's gone through the roof, and I have migraines every day. I'm sick and tired of being tired. Fannie Lou Hamer said it best. I can't believe that was almost 60 years ago, but I'm tired, and I'm only 19 years old. And I really hope that the generation that comes after us does not have to deal with the weight that we have on our backs now.
Absolutely. And I'm wondering, I mean, this is so powerful, and I hope that the audience is listening to the voices of these youth who are telling us about the psychological and emotional weight of today's experiences, but also are talking to us about the intergenerational transmission of this. If we don't, as elders, deal with the racial injustice, our youth and children will be left to solve those problems for us, which really limits, I think, their potential to grow, heal, and thrive. So what I want the youth to tell us about next is, as elders, you know, in the village, how can we support or better support you as you navigate these systems? How can systems rise up to meet you at your highest healing intention? What can we do to better support you?
I can go ahead and start. I've had this conversation not too long ago, and I was asked the exact same question, and I really had to think about what exactly does it mean to help us, because I know a lot of times adults naturally they try to help and guide, but will accidentally suffocate us or try to take control, take the lead, be in front. And the relationship that me and my mentor have has really taught me that collaboration is very important, and sharing power is even more. I think it's very important that adults and elders right now, our mentors, guide us, but don't suffocate us, and join us as we are going through this. Support us. You know, if I know for example, my grandmother, she's very aware that I'm very passionate about this. And I'm supposed to be organizing a protest here in Houston, Texas for June 20th. And, you know, her first instinct was, I don't know about that. I don't think that's safe. I don't think you're gonna do that. You know, like her first instinct was, no, you're not doing it. But the truth of the matter is I'm doing it, you know, but I feel like her concern was her immediate concern was her way of helping, immediately telling me no, because she's trying to protect me. I feel like a lot of adults are trying to protect us right now, but, in this time in the world, it's really not time to be convenient. Protecting is important, but we need to be standing alongside one another. So the collaboration and sharing power with one another is very important to think about when we're talking about tackling systematic racism and also tackling oppression that has been happening for over 400 years. It's not the time to say that an adult can do it, but a kid can't, or a kid can't, but an adult can't. We're on this line together. We're facing the same thing. We're dealing with the same things. And, age right now really doesn't matter because, there's 14-year-olds being killed by police brutality. So when we talk about age and power, it really doesn't matter how old you are. Authority needs to be shared right now. The adults I wouldn't say the youth is taking a lead, but I would say that we are on the forefront. But when it comes to actually the adults supporting us, I feel like they need to share their platforms and allow us to use our voices and lead us there, if that makes sense.
Just want to jump on what you said, Anaya, because I think that was like spot on. I think the role of kind of the elder generation is to elevate our voices. I talk about this a lot because I genuinely believe that young people's voices need to be heard authentically for what they are and not diluted, and that tends to happen. So when you think about it in an analogy, like young people don't just want a seat at the table, we want our own table and our own seats, and we're inviting adults to come on board of that. And that's the only thing that's going to really push this message. Like what we're looking for is allies. We're looking for adult allies who can elevate our voices and get us into rooms that we often get pushed out of. We no longer want to be a generation that is seen but not heard. Let us into these rooms, give us a platform to speak, and also support us, provide us with the resources that we need to elevate these voices and some of these visions that we have in our head. Because I've heard so frequently in these last 3 weeks of campaigning and being on the front lines, we have a lot of adults saying, okay, then what's next? Young people already know what the vision is. Just ask us those questions and we can tell you what the answers are. Like, we have a vision for the future and you need to listen to us and provide us with platforms that we can unapologetically share these. And we don't want to, like, I think it comes to the point where it's almost like young people constantly have to battle to be heard properly, where it's like, it's no longer that point where we need to battle anymore. You either join us or take a back seat. Because this generation, I can tell you for sure, as us young people, we're not waiting for anyone, really and truly. We're not going to be waiting for anyone, and we're inviting you into our rooms to help us, or you just have to take a seat and let us do the job. Because this, I'm really, really hopeful that our young people today are the people that are going to change this, because they're not just passionate about things. They are so strategic in how to get there. There is a vision. This isn't just effortlessly kind of campaigning for no reason. No, we're here to be seen, so then we can start to have conversations. So I think the biggest thing is elevate our voices, learn how to do reverse mentoring. There is a lot of people out there that can learn so much from young people. I mean, I don't think people actually understand the power of reverse mentoring. Learn as young people, use your voices to teach your teachers, use your voices to teach your managers, use your voices to teach your parents and your elder generation at home, because ultimately we have to be compassionate. They just don't understand how it feels like to be a young person. And ultimately, I want to see young people representing themselves. Let's get more young people into Congress. Let's get more young people as representatives, because that's where the system is, and that we can make change. And for ages, we talk about systematic kind of oppression, but young people's voices have been dimmed down because they've created a system where young people don't get to have a seat at the table. So I really want to see so many more young people in places of influence, so then they can make that change.
Certainly, I agree with you. I think it's important for our elders and other city and community leaders to understand that young people were tired of being just photo ops. We no longer want to be a photo op. We want to have an influence in policy. And at Cities United with our CEO, Anthony Smith, that's one of the things that he always brings up, that young people need to be at the table. If you want your organization to thrive, if you want your city to thrive and be great, you need young people at the table. One of the things that we're demanding here in Louisville from our mayor is a youth implementation team or youth advisory board, not only to just advise our councilwomen and advise the mayor, but give them voting power, allow them to make decisions. How can you create policy centered around young people when they don't have the power to vote on it, right? So we need to be at the table, we need to influence change, and we need a voice.
This is so powerful to listen to young people advise elders about what we need to do. And what I'm hearing, even, I mean, just as an elder in the village myself, is this idea about shared power and inviting people into a movement that in a way that actually allows youth to lead strategically. And one of the things we've been wondering about is like not just elders of color, which you have spoken to so poignantly, but what about non-Black teachers and other mentors? How can they support Black students as they navigate individual and systemic cases of racism?
That's where I think reverse mentoring is the biggest thing, right? I remember having conversations with certain professors in the UK and certain of my teachers, and even from a performing arts point of view, they didn't get it until I explained my story. I think we often feel like we have to back everything by facts and have all the statistics out there, but your story as a young person has so much influence to make change. Your story as a narrative is so powerful as a tool, and by allowing someone to hear your story can change everything. Like, a lot of people are ignorant because they just don't know, and I know that sounds crazy in the 21st century when we have information everywhere, but some people just are so ignorant that if it doesn't apply to them, then they don't need to know. So reverse mentoring comes in there. Like, I think as non-Black teachers and non-Black kind of people in workplaces, your responsibility is to learn and to listen. It's about asking the right questions and not just listening for the sake of listening, but actually applying that into your life. How can you be a positive role model, and how can you use that knowledge based on someone else's experience to drive change? Because ultimately, with reverse mentoring, what we're trying to do is get you to empathize and be more compassionate into what happens to us on a daily basis, so then you can also correct those around you. It's not just about, this is not just a matter that's affecting the Black community, this is affecting everyone. Therefore, we can no longer say that this is an issue that we're going to deal in isolation as Black people. Actually, we need some of these allies. We need so many one of you to collaborate with us to get this message further. And that can only happen when you start to learn from a very, very basic point of view. What is it like to be a Black person on a daily basis and a young Black person on a daily basis? And I really think that can only happen by reverse mentoring, but also giving young people spaces, safe spaces like now, where you can sit down and just listen and understand and ask the right questions, so then you can learn more. Self-education and self-discovery is going to be one of the biggest things for elder generations to begin to really understand young people. But I think it really does start there, by us young people sharing our stories and having those kind of allies listen to us properly and understand it.
In the respect that young people having that platform and being active for each other, for not in the respect for adults, but like the platform as young people use social media, do you think that has been like active or counterproductive in the movement for Black Lives Matter? Because in some respects, in all respects, I'd like to hear what you all have to say about what you've seen on social media and how that platform is being used effectively or ineffectively.
I think personally, it really is a hit or miss thing. I know my social media there is no set race. I have white friends, I have Black friends, I have people of color, and it's hard because as a person of color, you get the, hey, just checking in. And some of them they're sincere, they really do want to know how you're feeling. But it's hard to decipher and give that trust to the people who are really just kind of like just fishing for it and just wanting to be a part of the movement, or just taking away that light from you and whatever it is you're going through to interject, just their opinions on this matter. And I think personally, it's kind of annoying to have people just, and this is no disrespect to anyone in the chat, but to have people question like, oh, what is there for us to do? How do we handle it? I mean, it's really not that, it's not a complicated thing. There is a race who is, because simply of the color of their skin, is being targeted. that right there should just get you fired up. There's a huge wave of inequality right there. And so it's like, what we need, it's not just to hear our stories, but it's to also hear our emotions, how we feel about that day. How hard was it to look at your phone and see social media? How do you, to have, you know, a white person, you know, come into your social media and say, you know, hey, just thinking of you, I know there's a protest around you. Why does it have to be me? Is it, you know, what it's about? I don't want to call it guilt, but I want to call it guilt, you know? It's like, you see, you have a Black friend, you see that there's a protest going on, you think there's some correlation. No, there isn't. I know plenty of Black people who are steering away from the protest, who don't check social media, who don't read the news, because it's like we said, we're tired. It's the same things. Oppression has been going on for years, for centuries. It just shows its ways in a different face, in a different name. What we need is not, we just need that support, because what we want done for our community, we have enough strength, we have enough numbers, and we have enough anger to get it done. We just need the people we're going up against to see this isn't a Black and white thing. This is a, you've pissed Black people off, you've pissed white people off, you've pissed everyone off, and now everyone's tired. It's not about, hey, I know you're Black and I know these are Black Lives Matter protests. How are you feeling? Hey, I know you're tired. What's going on with you? How do we fix this?
Yes. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, and also we need to really understand, especially our non-Black peers on social media, that sharing images and videos and media containing Black pain is not helping your Black friends. And what I'm saying is, don't worry about sharing the news article. Yes, please share that. Please share the information, but please do not share videos. I saw the George Floyd video hundreds of times, countless of times. I saw multiple videos of just Black pain, and that's traumatic. We are reliving that trauma every time we see that. Instead of posting things like that, post information of how to help. Post ways you can donate or give your time, or other free ways that people can join the movement. Also, we need to be very careful about how we're framing social media in terms of posting Black Lives Matter stuff. We really want to make sure we're not at that fine line of performative allyship. You know, I'm pretty sure majority of my peers don't want protests and other Black Lives Matter related media to become the next spring break trip, because we didn't get to have that due to COVID-19. I've seen a lot of photo ops. I've seen a lot of people post their pictures and, you know, it make it kind of like a trendy flavor of the month thing, but Black Lives Matter is not a trend. Black Lives Matter is an affirmative statement that really shouldn't offend you if you truly care about all people. We know that all lives matter. I just want to have to make this statement here now. We know that all lives matter, but I'm going to use this example right here. If your neighbor's house is on fire, and you call the fire department to put out the fire, are you going to say, well, my house needs water too? My house needs to be taken care of too? Most likely, probably not. Well, at least I hope not. Your insurance probably wouldn't like that. But the importance here is that the Black house is not only on fire, it is burning down to the ground. It's always been on fire. So we really need to become more aware of the language that we use, the way we frame arguments to support Black Lives Matter, and actually listen and use the word wait. Why am I talking? To understand what voice are we sharing on behalf of Black people, and what are we actually doing? Are we perpetuating narratives, or are we just kind of here to save our public face, or do we truly care about our Black and brown friends here?
I think that's really powerful, Eric. And I love this terminology around performative allyship. That really resonates, because I think even elders experience that. And yet I'm also curious about identifiers of like folks in your circle, in your networks, non-Black and Black alike, who may be responding to you either in social media spaces or in your own environment, who are not contributing to the movement, who are not helping you to heal and cope. And I'd like to start with Gabrielle because I think she wanted to get in here earlier. So you can certainly give your points, Gabrielle, and then maybe pick up here about some potential like negative, identifiers. Like, when a person is kind of performing allyship and not really actually helping to serve you in your own healing.
Yeah, I have definitely experienced a lot of performative allyship from my friends. I've had people, I think one thing that's really important is to make sure, especially for Black people, that you don't let anyone tokenize you. Because I've had a lot of people who have like slid into my DMs and are like, Gabby, like, what do you have to say? Or can you like educate me? Can you teach me? And I'm like, excuse me, Google is free. There are so many resources on social media right now, and it is not my burden to carry to educate you. And so I think that's really important. And that's someone who is just looking for someone to tell them what to do rather than wanting to educate themselves. And I think also people who are just posting like nothing happened. I've also seen people post like their vacations, their fun weekend, when people are dying, people are being murdered. And so I feel like when people are acting like nothing is happening, they're showcasing their privilege and the fact that they do get to take a day off from this and that it doesn't affect them. And so I feel like once someone like shows you their colors, like don't bag them, don't always engage in these conversations of like, well, you need to understand. We should not beg people to see that like our life matters, that our life is valid, and they shouldn't have to, like Eric said, with the trauma porn, kind of, they don't need to see a man dying, gasping for his breath to say, okay, yeah, I now understand that like police brutality is real and your life matters. And so I think once you recognize that, to stop engaging with those people or engaging with that content to preserve your own peace is really important.
I would like to say, especially when it comes to people with huge platforms, celebrities that are actually non-Black, these people who benefit off of Black culture, like, I've been seeing on Twitter, it's a war going on about, wow, like this specific person is not using their platform to talk about systematic racism, or this person hasn't said anything about George Floyd. I could care less if they said anything about George Floyd, because I don't need, it's not like we're begging people to see us. It's not time to beg. It's either you see it, you get with it, or you get left. And I feel very unapologetic when I say that, because there are a lot of individuals, that are in Hollywood or that are just benefiting off of Black culture, that are not woke when it comes to things that actually matter, things that are actually, affecting us, affecting our people. And even like I have like certain friends, that are non-Black, are white. And I've just noticed that, like you love our music, you love our food, you love our people, you love our style, yet you said nothing. But you've never said anything, you've never said anything. I think it's important for us to know that we don't have to beg people to say anything. Like, what do we don't have to benefit off of that. I don't think right now we do need allyship. It's important for us to stand together, but at the same time, like I said, you get with it or you get left. We don't need anyone to stand alongside of us. It's not like, oh, if my white friend doesn't say anything, I'm going to die, or I need to tell her that she needs to be aware. I need to tell her that she needs to get woke. That's not my job. I think it's, like I said, get with it or get left. That's how I feel.
And I'm gonna piggyback off that. Just look out for certain words and phrases. If you're explaining how you feel about anything, whether it be, the simple things like, oh yeah, I'm going to the protest, or personal feelings about the police, or about like if you do participate in looting or anything, if you have to share and the person you're sharing is like, but, or what about, or if it's certain words you keep your ears out for, if they say that, you automatically know that this person is trying to argue with you in the most subtlest way. If you feel as if you should not have to explain why you're angry. If you are explaining to someone and you have to break down or diminish, or just, if you just have to dumb down why you're upset, leave them. Don't engage, because now you're wasting your time and your energy. And it's also, excuse my French, but it's also a talk shit and get exposed, get hit. If you do find this person, call them out. They do not get to continue to diminish other people. If you see them, you tell them, and then you tell other people, like, this is the person who said this, or they posted this. Report them, block them. Do not let them continue to get away with this, because those are the people that add on to the problem right now. It's when you're not 100% our ally. If you are not 100% down with the cause, at this point in time, you are against us. If you are not willingly understanding, there are people out here who are just so fed up. If you feel as if that's a problem, you're not with it. If you're trying to, oh, but my cousin's a cop and no. Do not settle. Do not ever feel as if that you have to put your feelings on a back burner. If you find somebody who makes you feel as if you have to question your story, delete them from your life. They should not have any power over you in terms of what you need, what you feel. Let that be known right then and there. Don't settle.
Yeah, I certainly agree with you, man. Really just, someone said there's 3 pandemics plaguing our world right now. It's poverty, police brutality, and then COVID-19. And with one of the pandemics, COVID-19, everyone wanted to listen. The experts were giving solutions. How do you flatten the curve? That's by staying at home, wearing a mask. But with police brutality, why aren't you listening? How do we flatten this curve? That's by listening. That's by understanding, like treat police brutality pandemic as we all treated COVID-19.
Yes, and none of this is new. Like, this isn't new information. Angela Davis was out here writing about this 40 plus years ago, and she's very much still alive and is still telling us the same message now. People should not act surprised by hearing about this. Now, I understand that many were not exposed to this, but it has never been our job and never will be our job to utilize our intellectual and emotional labor to explain to those who have not taken the time to do it themselves. That's only going to harm us in the end. We need to preserve that intellectual labor for moving forward this movement. We need to preserve our mental, physical, and emotional state so that we can be our best selves for those in our community, those who are what I would call co-conspirators, those who are non-Black allies joining us, as well as our fellow Black and Brown people who are really working to move forward in our society. In terms of preserving our mental state, it's like, it's okay to detox from social media every once in a while. For someone who's really, is like an extrovert and likes to be connected to people, it doesn't help that we're in the middle of a pandemic. But it's also great that we're in the middle of a pandemic because we are not as forced to be in those close-to-close social interactions. Use the time that you have. If you have the space, take it. It is okay to take a nap in the middle of the day sometimes. Sometimes it's okay to just close your eyes, detach, meditate, drink some water, because we can't solve problems that have been around for over 400 years overnight. We need to take the time to take care of ourselves. And if we don't, our movement will slow down and we're going to get stagnant. We need to take the time to take care of ourselves. And I don't think we hear that enough as youth or as Black people. It is okay to detach. It is okay to slow down. But that doesn't mean, drop the movement, but take the time for yourself, please.
That is really important, Eric. And, I know we're getting to the close of the hour, and I know Cameron had a final question she wanted to lift up. And I'll just pose this broadly to the youth on behalf of both of us, and to thank Cameron and the other youth leaders here for allowing me as an elder to be in this space with you today. I've learned so much. Your voices are so powerful and so necessary for this moment. And I'm wondering, elders are now talking. We're also in the midst of an election season, right? So most elders are saying, get out and vote. As a way to push back against systems of dehumanization and racism. What do you say to that? And we're going to use this last question as a way to close us out, but I would love to hear your response to that question.
I would say that do you want to go first, Anaya? Yeah.
Okay, I'll go first because I'm pretty sure I'm more so less educated about voting in general, and that's what I want to talk about. I feel like young people in general, I've had one class in high school, one class where, and this was a dual credit class, so it was really stemmed from the college in our area, where we actually sat down and we went through all of the people who are on the elections and actually what they stand for, what they believed in. And we're really not educated on what voting is and why we should vote. I feel like in general with Black people, there is a lack of trust, a lack of hope, a lack of respect in the system in general. And when people feel like nothing is going to get done, they're not going to get up and do anything. And I know when my family in general, my dad's side of the family, they don't get up and vote and stuff like that. And of course, the people who come to the schools with the t-shirts, with the go vote and with the clipboards and telling us, you guys need to go vote. It's can you tell us why? Or can you, not that I'm saying I don't know why, but I know there's a million other students here that don't know why they should, because they don't even think anything could get done. So I really wish there was a connection that we had when it came to our elders, because I know a lot of Black elders don't get up and vote anymore, I had to convince my grandmother when I was in 6th grade, Mom, you're not going to get up and vote because I just heard them talking about that at school. And it's we're not very educated when it comes to stuff like that. So I really wish there was some sort of resource, or we provided more resources to Black youth or just youth in general about why we should vote and the importance of it and what it actually could do to change. Because like I said, we're used to things not changing, and we're so used to being sick and tired and seeing the same things happening, no matter who's in office, no matter who is elected as president, no matter who is the senator, no matter who is the governor, we're dealing with the same thing. So I just, when it comes to voting and stuff like that, I know me in particular, I want to be more educated, but not more educated Google up something, why should I vote? I want to have a connection with someone, or a relationship where I can talk to someone that can actually tell me this is why we should vote, and you know what I'm saying? So yeah.
That was amazing, Anaya, because you're not the only one. A lot of young people don't understand the constraints of political action. And to break it down in the most basic form as I probably can right now, is everyone needs to understand that politics is people, and without people you can't have politics. These people in office are just general people. Any one of us could be a representative, and as Black people we need to understand that as a Black person you can become a representative, and we need normal people like us to become representatives to change that system. Point one. Point two, voting is for example, imagine we all have a party at home and everyone asks you, what do you want to watch on Netflix? And everyone's making votes. And if you don't vote, you don't actually get a say to influence the choice of film or TV series that you're going to watch. And because of that, you no longer have a say in what happens. Voting allows us to hold people accountable, but it also allows us to share our discretions. When you vote, it shares a direct signal to our representatives that they're not doing their job. If they don't get re-elected and they don't get voted in, that shows them that they need to do better. And as Black people, when we don't vote, we lose our voice. Your political voice as a community is so important. And in the UK, I'm so lucky that as Black people, we understand this. We are so powerful in numbers. And voting allows you to have a collective voice that you don't have to always be on the front line campaigning and rallying. Elections allow you to do that with a simple tick of a ballot box that allows you to do that. And by voting, we don't actually understand how many people around the world never got chances to vote. Black people fought. We talk about our ancestors. Martin Luther King voted, as in they worked so hard to allow us to be able to vote. They voted, they acted so hard to allow us to be able to be represented in these parliaments. And we have got to that point where we no longer see how important that is. And I just want to get you to understand that you don't vote because of the people. You vote for yourself. You vote because you earned that right to vote. You earned, as a Black young person, man or woman, when you turn that legal age, that is something that should empower you, because for years your ancestors never got that chance. Lots of decisions would happen and we would never get a say. Like, being able to vote is so powerful, and whether your parents want to or not, urge them to vote, because at the end of the day, if you're not old enough to vote, your voices should be embedded in those that your parents, your grandparents, your cousins, your uncles can do. And in my household, we've always been taught that voting is your power. That's your tool. That's your one time of the year that you can basically show the government, listen, do better, do more. You need to listen to us as people, and we're holding you accountable and we're watching you. Our members of parliament would not be in the positions they're in unless they were voted in. And that's what you have to understand. So if we don't vote for them, they don't get to do the things that they do. So if we vote for those that we actually want to do the right thing, that's why it's so important to vote. Don't think about the people that you're voting for. Understand that the system that you're trying to change needs more people that think like you, behave like you, share the same values as you, and support your dreams. That's what their job is. They're there to represent you. That's why they're called House of Representatives. That's why they're senators. They're there to represent the people, and we are the people. If we gather in numbers and show that, they have no reason not to listen to us, because we're going to hold them accountable. So I just want to remind everyone today, like, especially because we are in a political cycle, vote, use your power to tell the government to do better, because we're no longer going to allow them to do things. Like, we are powerful in numbers, and the only way we can do that in this system, unfortunately, is voting. Let's all vote. Use your power. Use your power. So many people fought years to be able to have that power to vote. Let's honor them. Let's vote. Let's use our power and collectively make a change, and put the people that we respect, trust, in positions of power, that they can be able to pass on the baton of the things that we are powerful and passionate about at home, and make that change in systems that they need to.
What a powerful call to action, Meg. I mean, you have really, I mean, you've said it, and you have challenged us as elders in the village to actually, one, not just compel you to vote, but give you the why, as has been pointed out in this among the panelists here. But you've also made us reimagine what voting means for us. Like, it's not about, you know, folks out there, it's about exercising that power we have within us. What a powerful message to us and to our youth. I know Cameron wants to close us out, and I want to thank everyone again for coming to this powerful conversation and for allowing me to be a part of it. And I hope that you'll take home some of the messages that our youth have shared and take them to heart, that you will act, you will listen, you will create new tables and new seats and allow them to lead strategically.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Powell, and thank you everyone on the panel right now. I just would like to remind everyone that after the webinar, we will be showcasing some youth art, and I would invite everyone to stay and see that. And also that we are scheduling future conversations to continue this one, to continue the movement, and to continue what we've done so far. So thank you all, and without further ado, here is the art.
I don't wanna see my people higher. America ain't never put us first, yeah. No justice, no peace, yeah, yeah. No justice, no peace, yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't wanna see my people higher. America ain't never put us first, yeah. No justice, no peace, yeah, yeah. No justice, no peace, yeah, yeah, yeah. people higher. America ain't never put us first, yeah. No justice, no peace, yeah, yeah. No justice, no peace, yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't wanna see my people higher. America ain't never put us first, yeah. No justice, no peace, yeah, yeah. No justice, no peace, yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't wanna see my people higher. America ain't never put us first, yeah. No justice, no peace, yeah, yeah. No justice, no peace, yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't wanna see my people higher. America ain't never put us first, yeah. No justice, no peace, yeah, yeah. No justice, no peace, yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't wanna see my people higher. America ain't never put us first, yeah. No justice, no peace, yeah, yeah. No justice, no peace, yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't wanna see my people higher. America ain't never put us first, yeah. No justice, no peace, yeah, yeah. No justice, no peace, yeah, yeah, yeah.